Hello, and welcome to Setting the Bar, where we sit down for a virtual drink with best-in-class operational leaders. Today, we're talking about the future of accounts payable and the KPIs that drive performance. Please welcome Mary Schaeffer, my guest, the founder of AP Now. Cheers, Mary. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to a fun conversation.
Of course. It's such a pleasure to have you on. So let's go ahead and dive in. Our first question is, if you could only track one KPI in accounts payable, which KPI would it be?
So for me, the one that I'm always preaching about, if you will, is early payment discounts, and not early payment discounts per se, but how many of them you got, and more importantly, how many did you lose? For the finance executive, your early payment discount is your best return on investment of any money that you have that you're investing today, unless you're in the business of being out with a baseball bat breaking knees. But I'm going to go with the thought that people listening to this are not in that business. To put it briefly, you think that's a safe bet?
I would hope that is a safe bet. But yeah, I think this is really interesting because you're actually the first guest that I've had on that has talked about the value of early payment discounts and really making sure that you're realizing those cash discounts. The way that I've always thought about it is, your sourcing organization has gone to great lengths to securities. You're essentially, leaving value on the table if you're not taking advantage of them. But you really pose it as a level beyond that, saying, you are leaving your best source of sort of return on cash on the table.
Your best investment return on cash. Not only that, that's for the finance executive, but when you look at the operational folks, they should be aware that if you leave those discounts on the table, unfortunately, it's usually pretty easy to find. So when you have somebody who's looking at efficiency in accounts payable, how can we make our accounts payable operation more efficient? Where are they not doing what they're supposed to be doing? Whatever. They'll hone in on that, they'll find it, and they'll make the AP team look bad.
So on that note, what are some of the most common reasons that you find that organizations aren't either, measuring their cash discount realization or aren't able to come through on it? Let's say that there's a company that is fully alive to the value of these cash discounts. What are the reasons that they can't execute?
So typically, if an organization doesn't have best practices in place and best practices when it comes to their invoice processing, they are not going to be able to get the invoice processed quickly enough to earn the discount. And it happens more frequently than you'd think. So they need to get their processes in line. And sometimes it's just simply because they can't get the mail open fast enough. People aren't approving fast enough. Some very simple things that can and should be changed.
So basically all sort of feeders around invoice processing cycle time. So
right.
The top level goal is cash discount, but to be able to get your cash discounts actually realized, you need to figure out the mystery of why you can't get to process and pay in 10 days.
Right. And if you can't, if you're not earning them, I would suggest that you figure that out really quickly before someone comes along and figures it out for you.
So Mary, actually maybe a slightly controversial question for us now. Which KPI would you recommend the organizations do not use to manage their AP organizations?
So it's the KPI that everybody wants. I will tell you that when I go out and I talk to people or people call here, it's the cost to process an invoice. I get asked it all the time, and I dislike it intensely. I always tell my kids, don't say hate, but I really do hate it because I think it's a really unfair metric. So people will call up, or I'll be talking and they'll say, the subject will come up and I'll say, I don't like it. And then why not? What's so bad about it? And I'd say, well, first of all, you have salary differences. So if you have an AP processor in a really rural area and you have one working in New York City or San Francisco or Chicago, the salary may even be double in one. So that's immediately going to throw it off. All businesses are different. Do you include corporate overhead? Do you even, what do you include? Do you include some of the management's time? Are you signing checks by hand, or are you having them all signed by the machine? How much automation do you have? I mean, I can go on and on. And it's so inevitably what happens is you're matching apples with oranges.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Mary. I honestly cannot tell you how much I've enjoyed today's conversation. And thank you all so much for watching today's episode of Setting the Bar. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you for having me.